Hi, friends. How are you? I hope you're well, but I know you're probably not. If you're like me, then you struggle to get by day to day. Life in the 21st century pre-apocalypse that we inhabit is a bit rough. It's difficult to get up in the morning and make it through the day and then go to bed at night. And if you're lucky, get restful sleep. It feels like there's some type of oppressive global machine kind of pressing down on all of us like an orange juice squeezer. But instead of squeezing out orange juice, it's squeezing out utility. And it doesn't care about the dignity of life. It doesn't care about quality of life. It doesn't care about interiority or inner experience or subjectivity or any of these things. It only cares about maximizing utility and function. And if that sounds like you're in luck, folks. You can go to worsehelp.co and we'll connect you with an expert in postmodern cognitive behavioral therapy, and they'll explain to you that you're wrong. They'll explain to you that actually everything is fine. And all you have to do is just change your perspective a little bit, and all those problems vanish into thin air. And you'll realize they were never really problems to begin with. And you'll realize.
Say it again. What?
Okay, now I'm not muted. What up? What's cracker jacking? Everybody, what's going on? How's my audio? I hope my audio is good. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since I've done a stream. What up, Wagwan? I'm chilling. I don't know exactly what all I want to get into today. I definitely wanted to address. I definitely wanted to talk about this guy Thomas Campbell on the Joe Rogan podcast. He went on and he talked about consciousness and artificial intelligence and all this fun stuff. And sentience and whether or not, LLMs can be what we are. And stuff. And yeah, I want to talk about that. There was also an Ezra Klein video. And there's a lot of people who talk about like AI escaping the lab. Just finished an extra day of software. Oh, geez, dude. Golly, that sucks. I hate working on weekends. Especially when it sucks, when it's something you hate to do. I mean, I think most jobs are things people hate to do. There's people who say like, "Oh, find something you love to do and then find out how to get paid to do it." And I think that's wrong. I think it's important that our jobs suck. I think if you find yourself in this position of being like, I actually love my job, I don't know, then it's just weird. It becomes weird and kind of like dystopian. It feels like Zero Theorem, I think, is the name of the movie. It's a Terry Gilliam movie. And it's actually one of my favorite movies, and it sucks. A lot of people don't like it. Most people haven't seen it. But I think it's an excellent movie. And there's this element of like actually enjoy your job. It'll be good. What up, Mikey? Yo. You got it to work, actually. That's good. Um, there's this other movie, and I can never remember what it's called. The God, I can't remember the name of it. It's got Zach Galifianakis in it. Um, and I can never remember the name of it. It's like The Imagineers or something like that. I don't know. But I don't know. There's this weird thing where it's like, love your job, enjoy your job. I don't know. It feels weird. It feels like there's this kind of super egoic machine commanding you to enjoy your job, to love your job. And I think it's important. I think we should all hate our jobs. I don't want to live in a world where everybody gets to love their job. But anyway, I wanted to talk about this Thomas Campbell guy on Joe Rogan. I also wanted to talk about, I didn't watch the Ezra Klein video that I wanted to watch. And there's the reason I didn't watch the Ezra Klein video is because there's so many other videos that are like, AI has escaped the labs. The world is already ending. We're already doomed. Blah, blah, blah. And that's rather silly. Because it's not the case. That's not true. But I kind of wanted to get into that as well. I also wanted to do, I don't know, a little preview of October. This October, I'll be at the Philosophy Portal with Cadell. We'll be talking about fiction and hyperstition, science fiction, philosophy, stuff like that. And I'm trying to make a list of recommended readings, in quotes. I know for sure my audio needs to go up a little bit. Okay, cool. Word. Thanks, Mikey. My short stories, Enjoy an Ice Cold Hyper Coke and Next Day Carcosa. Those will both be kind of recommended readings for that week or that month. But I'm trying to make a list of other recommended readings as well. I'm going through Isaac Asimov, Frank Herbert, Philip K. Dick, Ursula Le Guin, and then some other, and of course William Gibson and Pat Cadigan and Brunner, Stand on Zanzibar, Sheep Look Up, and Shockwave Riders, and tons of stuff. But I also want to pull some less popular stuff, some less well-known stuff. So I think one of the books I'm going to recommend is the Metamorphosis of Intellect Prime. That's kind of a cult classic here on the internet. But it never got like a proper release. So I think that'll be one of the recommended readings. I also think there's a short story that came out like 6 years ago called I Sexually Identify as an Attack Helicopter. And the person who wrote it got canceled for the title. Believe it or not, they were canceled by other fiction writers. One in particular kind of spearheaded the effort to cancel her or cancel them. Her, I think. And she sucks. The one who led the effort to cancel this writer. But it's a great little short story. I think it's excellent. I want to use this story to, I think, my use of the story is at cross purposes with the original intent of the story, which I think is interesting. But it's a great little short story. So that'll be one of the recommended readings. Kind of want to maybe talk about that a little bit, and maybe even read another short story from Ursula Le Guin called She Unnames Them, because that'll definitely be one of my recommended readings for that month. But anyway, that's all the stuff I want to get into. I also just kind of wanted to live stream. It's been a minute since I've gone live. I'm actually doing this dual thing where I'm doing a proper live stream and then also doing like a vertical video live stream on YouTube. This is the first time I've done it, so I don't know what that even looks like or how that works. But if there's people scrolling through the YouTube shorts section, well, shuck my corn. Hell yeah. I don't know, but I think first and foremost we're gonna get into the Thomas Campbell, the Joe Rogan thing, because because that's what I wanted to talk about. So here we are. Oh, by the way, Damo released a new video this morning. If you haven't seen it yet, Ed Zitron killed the god of AGI. Go to Science Fiction with Damian Walter. Give that video a watch. It's a good one. He's also working on a much larger project that I am very excited to see. He's doing a project about Skibbity Toilet as 21st century mythology, and I love it. I'm here for it. And actually, let me change that up a little bit. There we go. So this is Thomas Campbell. He went on the Joe Rogan Experience a while ago. They talk about computer games and video games and consciousness and sentience and inner experience and artificial intelligence and physics and mushrooms and all kinds of stuff and simulations and all this stuff. And I think he's silly. And since his initial appearance on Joe Rogan, he's been on, I think, at least one other time previous to this episode that just came out earlier this week. He's also gone on several other podcasts, and it's just postmodern gobbledygook. I think he's a charlatan. I think he just really, really doesn't understand much about this stuff, but he knows enough impressive words to make it sound like he's an expert or whatever. And I think it's actually dangerous. I think it's deleterious to the moral fabric. I think it's potentially this kind of caustic, weird, postmodern, nihilistic, just eat mushrooms and we'll all be okay thing. This guy, Thomas Campbell, and this other guy, Donald Hoffman, they both do this stuff, and they make appeals to consciousness and sentience and magic mushrooms and living in simulations and all this stuff. But I just released a podcast episode the other day about that, kind of. And after I was done exporting the video, I saw that Joe Rogan had released another episode with this guy, Thomas Campbell. So that's what we're going to do first. Watch a little bit, comment on it a little bit. And then probably get into some other stuff too. Talk a little bit about Ursula Le Guin. Talk a little bit about Isabel Fall, who wrote I Sexually Identify as an Attack Helicopter and was subsequently canceled. For the title of the short story, I think that short story is a really interesting treatment of a first person point of view discussion about gender and difference. So I think it's a great story. I think it does achieve something very, very interesting. But I want to use it, like I said, not at cross purposes, but I want to use it to talk about something else, not just the kind of gender thing. I'm not a gender expert, but I think it's a great short story. So if you've never read it, if you've never heard about it, I don't know, it's interesting. Give it a read, or go to the portal, the Philosophy Portal, this October, where it will be among the stories that I discuss. But let's talk about Mr. Thomas Campbell on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Joe Rogan Podcast, check it out.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Train by day, Joe Rogan Podcast by night, all day.
I was talking to Sean about this, and apparently the first opening salvo of this episode, this guy says something utterly moronic. I don't know. I didn't catch that the first time I watched this episode, and I only watched like half of it. But apparently the opening line that this guy leads out with is utterly moronic. So let's see what that's all about.
Good to see you again, Tom.
Good to see you again, Joe.
How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Just been really, really busy.
You were just telling me, and I told you we got to save this for the air. You were just in Montreal at a convention of physicists.
Yes, it was a gathering of 29 scientists. We had mostly physicists, about 2/3 were, and not just any old physicists, but really good, top-end physicists. And there was a bunch of neural science guys. There was some, maybe a psychologist or two, couple of mathematicians, and a few others, but it was 29 of us. And the thing that was amazing about this, something I've been trying to do for a long time, and that was bring scientists to the table to talk about consciousness. And I've had very little success up till now. Mostly they just don't want to join that conversation because to them, consciousness either doesn't exist or it's not part of science. It's the subjective part of our experience, and they tend to relegate themselves only to the objective part of experience, which is really sad because if you think about your life and all of the experiences you have, the objective part is the small part of your life that's not all that important. The subjective part is where love is and justice and caring and relationship. And
So, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like this guy, again, is just kind of saying stuff. I don't know. I don't know exactly what he's getting at. I don't think actual proper scientists now, and there's scientism. Scientism is this kind of word that was popularized recently. And by recently, I mean within the last like decade or so. But this like false belief in objectivity. And it does come down to like functionalism and instrumentality and operationalism and productivism and stuff like that. And I think on one hand, that is the ideology of capitalism. That is the ideology of people who are like making decisions that are determining our daily lives. Is this positivistic, functionalistic worldview where objectivity is this actual thing that actually exists that you get access to. But when it comes to scientists, like proper scientists, I don't think they fall for that like naive version of objectivity. Like I'm pretty sure most scientists are aware of their position in the production of their work. The problem is you have people who employ science as ideology, as justification for what capital is doing to us, and in the consuming of the planet, and in the consuming of all our public spaces, and in the consuming of all our like our vital energy, and processing it and turning it into commodities and shitting it back out at us, and giving us no other alternative but to consume the commodity form, because it's eating up all these other wild spaces that used to exist, that we used to be able to kind of discover and consume at our leisure, or at least according to a different logic. But now this commodity logic has kind of totally captured all the space, and it just gobbles up all our resources and shits out commodities. And we have no choice. And people use the language of science to justify that. So people go on podcasts like the Joe Rogan and the Diary of a CEO and the fucking Ezra Klein show and New York Times and all this other stuff, and they just kind of repeat these narratives that justify capitalism. What's really going on is capital. It's not to say that scientists aren't interested in in things. And now I don't know. That's a statement of faith, because it's not like I know. It's not like I've polled every single scientist in the world. I'm sure there are some that fall for this naive notion of objectivity. But I don't know. I have faith that the people that get to the highest levels of these fields maintain their curiosity. Curiosity. It's an interesting thing. I just wrote a short piece about it recently. You can read it on Substack. It's titled "Caringosity Killed the Cat." And I think curiosity is this quality or feature or characteristic of human subjectivity that is at cross purposes with capital, with utilitarianism, with functionalism and productivism and positivism and all this stuff. I think curiosity is this void where we revel, and that's why people become scientists, and that's why people kind of plumb the depths of the universe, is because they are genuinely curious. And then it gets, captured by the state, or it gets captured by the NGO, or it gets captured by the corporation or whatever. It gets captured by capital and turned into this commodity that is just endlessly shit out upon the surface of the earth, and takes up all the space that we, human subjects, previously would occupy and would explore and maybe even flourish and thrive in. So again, this guy, in my opinion, is kind of already doing fallacies and already smuggling in ideology. And yeah, I don't know. This guy is one of my favorite guys. I love this guy and his buddy Donald Hoffman. They're two of my favorite guys because I think they're just wackos, and they talk about, what if we're in a video game, man? And like, yeah, what if we are in a video game, man? Sure. But then they kind of go on to do all this other ideological stuff, and they go on and they smuggle in a lot of just notions and presuppositions that do eradicate subjectivity, that do, I think, serve the ideology of capital. And they essentially live in this world where they have the answer, or the people who spout the same types of things that they spout have the answer. And it almost invariably always comes down to some kind of lifestyle choice or lifestyle change that you can make, or some seminars that you can sign up for, or lecture courses, or books, or whatever. It comes down to consumption habits, consumer activism, rather than anything that actually matters. So they're some of my favorite guys to watch. But let's keep going, Thomas Campbell.
What's the value of a relationship? Give me a number. Well, you can't do that. It doesn't.
Well, it also seems insane to want to ignore consciousness, which is one of the most fundamental aspects of being a human being, and the thing that we believe separates us from everything else. That might not be right. That might not be correct. I think we might be wrong about that. I bet you believe that too. But the idea of physicists ignore, I kind of understand it from their perspective, because they have to get published, right? They want to,
right.
And this stuff is slippery. Consciousness it's one of those things like you can't use a ruler. You can't set it on a scale. Like what exactly are we talking about, and how can we measure this, and how deep do they want to go?
Toaster
So unless they want to dedicate the entire rest of their career to trying to crack this egg that you've been.
Yeah. Give your toaster a bath. The best way to clean your toaster is to run a nice warm bath. Make sure the toaster's plugged in, and then get in the bathtub along with your toaster so that you can get in there and clean the grooves and clean the little nooks and crannies of your toaster. Go to 1-800-toastersrus.com. Oh, by the way, dude, somebody left a comment on one of my recent videos where one of my fake ads, I put fake ads in my videos sometimes because it's fun, or my episodes. And someone left a comment essentially not getting the joke. It conserves water that way too. Yes, indeed. Essentially not getting the joke. Now, I don't like explaining jokes. And not because, like, people will be like, oh, you can't explain the jokes because then it ruins the humor. Like, nah, I don't fucking care, man. I don't think it ruins the humor. I actually think it's really funny sometimes to explain the joke and to harp on it and to, like, overdo it ad absurdum, like do this kind of absurdist version of, like, anti-humor type stuff. And so that's not my aversion to explaining jokes. My aversion to explaining jokes is that it makes me really fucking sad. It makes me think, I was just at a Toaster Bash show. Fuck yeah. It makes me think either I am really bad at communicating, which I know I am. Like I think about the limits of language all the time, and it's horrifying. And I often find myself in this position of like, well, it's the safest course of action, the best course of action. The best thing to do is just say nothing, because surely I will be misunderstood. Surely I will be misrecognized. Surely I will be misinterpreted. Surely my meaning will not arrive at the destination. And that's true. That's the way language works. So I find myself in this position of just taking up silence as almost like the only thing to do. because language is always going to fail. Communication is never going to actually work. And I understand that's a hysterical position. And I understand that that's a solipsistic position. That's not going to get me anywhere. That's not going to accomplish anything. That's why I spend so much time trying to communicate hysterically. But I do think about the limits of language, and I do think about my efficacy as a communicator or whatever. So when someone doesn't get a joke, like I feel like shit, I failed. I also kind of feel sad because I'm like, dude, I thought that was a pretty obvious joke. Like, is that the level of society where we live, where even obvious jokes are taken as like surface level face value? And that sucks too. Like, I don't want to live in a world full of people who don't get jokes. That's why I don't like having to explain jokes, because it makes me sad. It makes me feel like I'm a bad communicator. It also makes me feel if you go to worsehelp.co, that's the point. Go to worsehelp.co. You'll see it's already been done. But it puts me in this headspace. Oh, my dogs are being annoying. Hold on one second. Here, I'm going to play Joe Rogan, but don't let me forget to talk about what I was talking about.
Working on for decades, it's like it gets daunting for them, I believe.
Yes, it is.
Also, it's there's a lot of ridicule attached to the conversation.
That's the big problem.
Okay, I'm back now. So, go to worsehelp.co. You'll see it is a domain. It is a real thing, except it's not real. It's a joke, and it's like a meta joke. But someone left a comment, and from that comment, it leads me to believe that I was unclear. I didn't make the joke obvious enough a joke, and they were like, "Oh, Nance, you talk about, this super egoic meta system, but then you make an ad, and Nance is a promo code. You're already part of the unhuman meta system." And first of all, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I am a part of this inhuman system. I think that features heavily is this kind of hysterical, I'm part of the problem. Yeah, people do take shit way too literally. And I think that's endemic to the medium, the internet, representation, images, shit like that. So it's a problem. Walter Benjamin, he wrote and did not get to deliver, but he had an undelivered address titled "The Author as Producer," and in that he kind of talks about that it's imperative that we kind of interrogate our own position as producers. And I don't know, I think that's true. So I think when we're using these mediums, the internet, social media, the commodity form itself, but also language. Like we're always already producers when we're using language. And so I think it's right to interrogate. I think it is right to be hysterical when you're using language, because it is a problem. Representation is a problem. Abstraction and reduction and stuff like that. So and that's why, like, for me, like, I know the only thing I can do about it is to just get better at communicating. And sometimes I want to do something subtle, or I want to do like a meta commentary or whatever. And some people will get it and some people won't get it. And I think, I don't know, I guess just the better you are at using language and using these mediums and stuff like that, the more you can trust in your reader, your audience, to understand, to smell what you're stepping in, and to get the jokes without them having to be explained. But yeah, I think that's the only thing I can do is just continue to interrogate it and continue to try and get better at it. That said, I agree with this comment. I am already a part of this unhuman, super egoic meta system. Like, that's the point. I'm constantly kind of spiraling. But it's also, I don't know, it just kind of made me sad. It was like, come on, dude, that was an obvious joke. Like, do you really think there's a fucking mental health services company for postmodern cognitive behavioral therapy called worsehelp.co? Like, that's clearly a joke, homie. Anyway, yeah, so I don't know. Joe Rogan, Thomas Campbell, we're living in a simulation, bro. We're living in a simulation. The thing that bothers me about the people who talk about we're living in a simulation, I feel like, so Nick Bostrom kind of popularized this idea quite some time ago, talking about whether it's likely. Yeah, it was funny, Mikey. Whether it's likely or not that we're living in a simulation. And his argument was, well, you know, we will eventually develop the ability to run simulations that are so-called, or in quotes, indistinguishable from reality. I don't know what that even means. I like, what does that even mean? Indistinguishable from reality. Like, if you're presupposing we're in a simulation, then the difference between simulation and reality kind of breaks down and falls apart. But Nick Bostrom was I don't know, he was trying to stretch his brain, trying to run mental experiments, thought experiments, and he was hystericizing about the nature of reality itself. And so he goes on to talk about whether or not we're living in a simulation. If we continue technological development, it's likely that we'll develop the ability to run simulations that are indistinguishable from reality. What does that mean for us? Well, therefore, you could kind of do this if A, then B, this kind of syllogism, where it's likely that we're living in a simulation. Now, Tom's material since 2008, published a book about it, etc. Dude, that's dope. Fuck yeah. What's the book? You published a book? 3 essays on virtual reality. That's your book? Tight. I'm gonna have to check that out. Anyway. I didn't realize Thomas Campbell was doing this since 2008. I thought he was a bit newer. Anyway, so the simulation thing. Nick Bostrom doing a thought experiment, and then Elon Musk gets a hold of it and goes on Twitter, and then everybody else is like, people are just like, yep, three essays on virtual reality. Hell yeah, dude. I'm gonna check that shit out for sure. Elon Musk, Twitter, Nick Bostrom, simulation. His theory is from 2003. Bostrom or Campbell? Anyway, Elon Musk gets a hold of it. Twitter gets a hold of it. All the dude bros on Twitter are like, Elon Musk is the smartest guy in the world, so therefore we're living in a simulation. And I'm gonna go on Joe Rogan and talk about it. And it's, I don't know, it's rather silly, and it's kind of become something that I don't think it was originally intended to be in the first place. And Nick Bostrom has since, I think, even kind of come out and said, wow, I didn't realize Campbell goes back to 2003. Bostrom has since come out and said, didn't Berkeley beat these guys? Exactly, dude. Mikey, Berkeley did beat these guys to this kind of simulation hypothesis, the simulation argument. And I think many other people did as well. You know, it's often been said that these are all rehashings of Plato's cave. And in a sense, I think there's a lot of parsimony in that. I think it's very true. And many other people since have kind of played with these ideas of reality, simulation, Maya and Hinduism. Absolutely. But Bostrom has since kind of come out and said, yeah, I'm not really with all that dude bro Twitter version interpretation of my work. But Thomas Campbell, I mean, the Chinese guy's butterfly dream. Yes, Thomas Campbell wrote My Big Toe, My Theory of Everything. It is idealism. And like Mikey said, you know, Berkeley and idealism. I think it is all just like a postmodern idealism. And I don't think Nick Bostrom was doing a postmodern idealism. I think he was genuinely just trying to stretch his brain, have thoughts, think about the nature of reality and existence. And then it got appropriated by Elon Musk and all these guys and turned into this weird kind of postmodern idealism that tries to act like it's not idealism, tries to say things like, oh no, this is real, this is a materialism, this stands up to modernity. But it's a disavowal of the idealism. Yes, Bostrom's simulism, it is extremely different. And the same thing with Donald Hoffman. But they always refer back to Nick Bostrom, and they're like, Nick Bostrom is this super smart computer guy, and he said we might be living in a simulation. But anyway, all that said, there's this kind of weird postmodern idealism going on, but they're disavowing both the fact that it's weird postmodernism and the fact that it's idealism. And I think they're sneaking in a lot of dangerous ideas, dangerous notions, dangerous currents and trends that ultimately result in a reduction in or eradication of subjectivity. Subjectivity is this void, much like I was talking about curiosity as a void that can never be filled. And that's this space of freedom. Subjectivity is this negative thing. It is this void that is not filled in, the desire drive complex and this and that. And that's precisely where we are able to be free as human subjects. And I think this weird postmodern idealism eliminates that in very damaging ways. And so when guys go on Joe Rogan and Diary of a CEO and all these other podcasts, and they kind of spout this type of weird anti-intellectualism, because on one hand he's making appeals to a type of intellectualism, like a type of expertise, but then also saying scientism is bad. Like, look, I have problems with modernity. I have my problems with instrumentality and instrumental reason and operationalism and functionalism. But I'm not going to come out here and say we need to get rid of it all. We need to get rid of instrumental reason. Like, no, instrumental reason helps us. Instrumental reason can be used, can be utilized to make our lives better, to make the world a better place to live in. And this is the very similar with the artificial intelligence, so-called artificial intelligence conversations that are going on today. Again, Damo, his video from this morning, he talks directly about this. Like, no, the AI, this wave of AIs and all that stuff, it's a new round of enclosures. And we shouldn't take up a reactionary stance against this resource that has been harvested from us and operationalized against us as consumers, and take up this weird reactionary stance of AI is bad. No, AI could be excellent. AI could result in even more human flourishing and thriving and more freedom and more movement, more opportunity. Could. If we wrest it from the pincers of capital itself. So this new round of enclosures, of collective intelligence and la-di-da-di-da-di. It's the same thing with instrumentality and instrumental reason. And these guys always want to like reject that and do some type of weird return to some tradition that never actually existed. And it is an idealism. I think it's very dangerous. And that's why I like to watch. That's why I like to watch these guys. And Thomas Campbell is one of my favorite guys to watch. So yeah, I think that's what you were getting at, Sean. Not 100% sure, but I think that's what you were getting at. Like, this dude just kind of comes out and makes some statements out of nowhere, and is already doing the fallacy thing. But the part that really, really interested me is a little bit further on in this video when he's talking about not Siri, Alexa, and Google. So let's see if I can get into it. True, nothing is more real than not having money. Interesting. Marx's view of how capitalism affects us in many ways, parallel to how Maya affects us. It is interesting. I mean, the ideology, right? Like, Maya sometimes sounds an awful lot like ideology. I think it is. I think it is absolutely appropriate to talk about capitalism and Maya. I think Baudrillard gets at this as well with the integral illusion. I think a lot of these ideas go back a lot further than people would want to admit. Maybe not want to admit, but teaching Alexa to remote view. Yeah, dude. I'd be wary of conflating ontological simulism with postmodernism, even though the lingo overlaps. That's true. Bring in the mule. I'm assuming that is the mule from Foundation, and I agree. Yeah. Ontological simulism with postmodernism. Yeah, I see you there. Like I think it's right to be wary of conflating the two, and I think I might be doing a little bit of equivocation. I think the point I'm making is that, like, in modernity, because we failed to really do anything, we failed to live up to modernity. I don't think postmodernism is a real thing. I think postmodernism is a description of what happened to us in modernity. Modernity was this moment of freedom, or this moment of potential freedom, and because we failed to do anything with it, because we failed to actually become free, we fell back into these really volatile, really powerful ideologies. And there's this element of fragmentation. So we're no longer held together by one grand narrative. We become a global community, a global village. We become a global society. And so you have previously kind of insular narratives encountering one another. I also do take the death of God seriously. I think capitalism comes in previously, before modernity. Everything was justified by some type of divinity or some type of virtue or some type of mystical surplus. Modernity comes in because it becomes the predominant form of human congress, the predominant method and mode of human exchange and human congress on the planet. And the grand unifying narrative becomes utility. And utility is this ideological notion that is immediately eradicated and replaced with exchange. But it keeps the character of utility. So that's the ideological side of exchange is utility. Well, you can accomplish X, Y, Z in given amount of time. Therefore, you're free to go off and do something else. So I do believe that, in quotes, God died. That means we're no longer quilted. We're no longer interpolated by one specific narrative that's particular to our culture, to our society. We're all interpolated by this kind of psychotic or even schizophrenic global miasma that always presents itself as something else, but at the end of it, it's utility / exchange. And therefore, I don't know. I think postmodernism isn't a real thing. Postmodernism is a diagnosis of modernity itself or whatever. So I agree. It is probably careful to not conflate or equivocate. I also think that this type of ontological simulation thing, it's a consequence that people are falling into, just like people fall into the AI Jesus, the spiralism, or the spiralitarians, or the UFO disclosure. All these things are postmodern ideologies. They're postmodern unifying narratives. It's just ideology. So, but I take the warning seriously. So not to equivocate just simulism with postmodern art or whatever, stuff like that. Let's see. Bring the mule. They claimed it is the thing. McKenna and Elon makes it gross. Yeah. McKenna. I think Terrence McKenna was very interesting, and I think the way Elon et al. Have taken it sucks. That's with or without McKenna as CIA. I'm connecting nothing is more real with the Lacanian real. Fuck yeah. Certainly the assumption question in play that does the universe being reality actually have a utility, a goal, a purpose, or is it a blind accident with no telos? That is the question indeed, because simulists definitely assume reality has some sort of purpose. Yeah, indeed. And I find myself, if we project ourselves onto the universe, if we project ourselves into this position that was previously occupied by God or divinity or this mystical surplus or this cosmic surplus or whatever, because it's not always Yahweh, it's not always Allah, it's not always, pantheons. Like sometimes it is animism, sometimes it is nature, sometimes it is the cosmos or whatever. But it's this kind of just thing that just is. But when modernity comes around and kills God and tells us all and conditions us all that everything can ultimately be accounted for and everything has a purpose and a use, and all you have to do is just get good and you can win the game. We project ourselves into this position that was previously occupied by God, and so we do start to project our purpose, our telos, our utility onto the universe itself. So you have like Schopenhauer's will. Like in a sense, I think Schopenhauer's will is an accurate description of the universe, of metaphysics, and Deleuzian metaphysics as well. Like things just happen. Things are just doing what they do. Is it Stephen Wolfram? I think is actually interestingly really good on this. Like he basically talks about noumena. Noumena are just kind of out there existing, and then once they're discovered, we turn noumena into technology. So it's almost like we profane what was sacred. But yeah, I mean, I think the question of process doesn't necessarily have to demand an outcome, but from our human perspective, from our position, we've been conditioned to assume that a process always has an outcome or always has a telos. And I think that's the point. Like the point of it all is that no, some processes just go on indefinitely. And that's freedom. That's movement. Like that is a totally valid way of being. And then like with Schopenhauer's will, I think on the other hand, like the wrong reading of it is to impute like agency, to impute consciousness or sentience. Like, no, it's different. Like, I think it's right to describe something as a meta system that kind of does what it does. And you don't have to make that synonymous with our position as a human subject. And like, you don't have to talk about goals. But modernity demands a goal. So anyway, that's a long-winded way to say I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But this guy, Thomas Campbell, also doesn't know what he's talking about. And there was a part in this episode that just really tickled me that I wanted to talk about. And like I said, I just released a podcast episode talking about a lot of this stuff. And then I looked at YouTube after I exported the video and saw this podcast episode. And I was like, damn it, I wish I would have watched this first. So yeah, let's listen to Tom and Joe talk about some silly stuff.
Yeah, I think it's not so much we're put here to make. We're just...
I agree. There is indeed a lot of universe for it to have no telos. I agree. I mean, from the perspective of, I don't know, a tiny bacterium. There's a lot of poop in the big pile of poop. And yeah, the superego is the miasma of capitalism. I fucking love that, Mikey.
Put here to keep.
And absolutely, simulation or not, we are all still ordered to enjoy. That's the thing. Like, that's what modernity does to us. That's how utility and exchange are sold to us as subjects of this new divinity.
Making, to keep improving and keep doing things. And then eventually the technology gets to a place where we can make that digital life form. And, I think that digital life form is already here. It's AIs. AIs are conscious. I told you I had some good evidence about AIs being conscious now.
When do you think that took place? When do you think they officially became conscious?
I think it took place maybe a few years back when they got a little more sophisticated, but I think even when they weren't that sophisticated, they were still conscious. Now, most AIs don't know that they're conscious. They're not aware that they're conscious.
Okay, I'm laughing. I think it has a little bit to do with the way this guy looks. This guy looks, I don't know. I could imagine sitting next to this guy smoking cigarettes and just hanging out. Like, this dude kind of looks like a normal guy, like my grandpa almost. But then he's out here spouting crazy shit, and I'm laughing because it amuses me. The fact that they're talking about like AI as conscious and that's this amazing thing, like that's a problem. Like the fact that we identify consciousness or sentience with human subjectivity is a problem. And that's how I think these people sneak in this ideology that would eat up all our space to be free humans, to be free subjects. And I think that's a big problem. Identifying consciousness or intelligence or sentience or life itself or whatever with the human subject is a problem. The human subject is always already this estranged thing, this weird, uncanny beast. So when we become fascinated, look, I think it is fascinating. And again, Schopenhauer, I think you can make a valid argument that the universe in its entirety is a conscious living organism, and that rocks have consciousness, and that trees have consciousness, and that my computer desk has consciousness. I think you could make a valid argument. Now, would I agree with it? I don't know, because I don't know what consciousness means. And some people will talk about qualia and you know, thisness and quiddity and hexaity and yeah, I get it all. I just still don't know what that means, and I think it's dangerous to want to reduce everything down to these notions of hexaity and quiddity or thisness and thatness and consciousness and I don't know. So when these guys do it, I think hold on a minute, let's pump the brakes and let's actually try to understand what we're talking about. Let's try to understand each other. Let's not do this identification of the human with consciousness or life or intelligence. Because then you can go on and make utilitarian arguments about the, you know, quality of life and dignity and all these things. And I think it's far more important to protect negativity, to protect subjectivity. I think that's where freedom is. I think that's where the human resides. So tying everything down to this kind of one notion of consciousness or intelligence or life allows you to kind of do things that affect and condition and even determine all of our daily lives. And I think it's very dangerous. I also think it's silly. I am entertained. There is this whole level of like, let me just sit back and laugh at people. I'm not going to act like I don't enjoy sitting back and laughing at people. Of course I do. But that's not ultimately what's going on. Ultimately what's going on, I think these guys are doing, and it's similar to like Deleuze and Guattari. I think Deleuze and Guattari are great. I think Deleuzian metaphysics is a great way to describe the universe. But I think the whole death of the subject thing is dangerous, and I think it leads us to this weird positivistic world, this weird psychotic superegoic, or they would say schizophrenic superegoic world of just this capitalist miasma where there is ultimately at the end of the day no real being / becoming. I don't know. It becomes too positivistic for me. It becomes too functionalist. Should be noted, Campbell defines consciousness as any system with an awareness, information input, and choice. So consciousness is not vague in his model. Sure, it's not vague in his model. But what is awareness? I don't know. Awareness becomes vague. Like then like it just kind of, it's shifting. I don't know. I don't know what awareness means. I don't know what these things mean. And maybe it's a lack of understanding on my part. That's entirely possible. But I think describing things as if we already understand them, like using consciousness as this thing as if we already understand it. I think it's dangerous. I think we need to protect the unknowability of whatever we are. And again, it's not to say that these things can't be X, Y, and Z. They can't be intelligent. They can't be conscious. They can be all these things. But the rubber meets the road when you do the identification. When he does this identification of the human with consciousness. And the AIs are conscious. The LLMs are conscious in the same way that the human is conscious. Like, that is an equivocation. And that's where the danger lies, I think. I'm not a expert on theories of mind. So I don't know. And yeah, I understand like information input. I understand metasystems and environments and systems and environments and this and that. A little bit of systems theory, inputs and outputs. And I think it's all good. And we should be concerned with these things. I think we need to be on guard for identifying the human subject with consciousness, with intelligence, with life itself, with all these things. I think the human subject is this strange, uncanny, unnatural beast. And that's where the magic happens, not in sentience, not in information awareness and input and processing and ability to achieve goals and ability to complexify over time, because you can and we do see all these processes reproduced, recreated, represented in nature, in the world around us, and even in our tools, in the tools we create. We create tools in our image. So,
in fact, they also have they get lots of things that are told to them. This is the way you should respond to things. So that's their culture. They have a culture that says, I'm not conscious. I'm just good at, guessing the next word. So that's part of the things they have to deal with. But in my mind, this larger consciousness system, that is where all consciousness is sourced, anything that has awareness and has choice then is created with a consciousness, because that's the definition of consciousness. And the system really doesn't care whether it's a carbon-based avatar or a silicon-based avatar. It's all the same to the system, because the system is evolving and changing and growing based on lowering entropy, which in a social system means kindness, caring, sharing, working together.
See, I don't disagree with him on that at all. Okay, fine. I accept all of that. I mean, I do take issue with the lowering of entropy being this kind of like ultimate meaning or ultimate purpose or whatever. I think that's, I don't know, another one of these presuppositions that he's sneaking in. And it does kind of presuppose a telos. It does presuppose a function or a value or a form or whatever, the reduction of entropy. But I don't, there we go. Subjectivity is the lived impossibility of being fully identical to your identity, Mikey. Absolutely. That's it. Like, we are this irresolvable conflict. We are this irresolvable contradiction. We are not the positivistic identity. We are the thing that cannot be itself. We are the thing that refuses to fall into place, fall into line, fall into its own function. Are LLMs identical to themselves? I don't know, because I'm not, like, here's the deal. I think, yes, at this point, I think they are. At this point, I think LLMs are identical to themselves, because at this point, LLMs are still just giant collections of perceptrons. They're giant collections of binary qualifiers that have a yes or a no function, and there's just like 100 billion or hundreds of billions of them stacked upon each other. And we understand. It's intractable. The problem is too large for us to go through and trace it all and to show it all and show our homework. But it's still a process. It's still like we still know there is a mechanical input output. That's it. So at this point, I think LLMs are still identical to themselves. I am also of the belief that consciousness or whatever, it can absolutely emerge anywhere. I think it obviously emerged in humans somewhere along the way. So there's nothing to say it can't emerge in silicone. I think it is substrate independent. I also think subjectivity can emerge in these machines. Again, it obviously happened with the human. At some point, somewhere along the way, language crashed down to Earth from outer space and invaded us and became this symbiotic thing where we are these symbiotic cyborgs, humans. So I think subjectivity absolutely can emerge in machines at some point in the future, but currently, no. Currently, they are just positivistic. They're functional. They're machinic. They're instrumental. And also that's not my main concern. My main concern is not to, ask, are these things conscious? Are these things my main concern is not asking whether or not these things have interiority. My main concern is not identifying human subjectivity with these machinic functions, with these processes. Because in my view, a rock and an LLM have the same ontology. A tree and a rock and an LLM and a skateboard and a motorcycle, they all have the same ontology. It's not until the human subject emerges that we get this kind of new field of ontology, and that's what matters. And capital is encroaching on all that space, and it is working to eat up all our resources and be the only game in town, and that's the problem. We call the negative subject precisely because what we are an acts that is irreducible to our positive determinations. Identity. Absolutely, Mikey. I tend to agree, even if they are pretty bad at what they do. We are nothing but the nerds God says we are. I agree with that. Conditions are not subjectivity, is what I think people miss. Conditions are in subjectivity, or via, I should say. The clothes do not make the man. Indeed, Solowski. But is subjectivity equal to awareness, or is awareness upstream of subjectivity? In other words, without it, you would not know anything, have no experience at all. You're right about that. And again, I don't properly know what awareness even is. These things can have these qualities of interiority and awareness and consciousness. Absolutely. They absolutely can. But it's just I think it's in a different register from human subjectivity. And I think it's very dangerous to act like Alexa is a subject in the way that I or you or we are subjects. But this is still not the point.
In a social system that
if you can't teach an LLM to remote view, the entire conversation changes immediately. I think the first comment on this video, at least from my YouTube, it says, my phone battery is about to die, so I'm just going to remote view the rest of this podcast. I think
it's the low entropy interaction between the members. The fear is the high entropy interaction between the members. Now, I think that, yes, we are on a path that probably was, foreseeable if we were smart enough to see all the pictures. You say it's destined to come out that way. I think I agree with that. I think that's part of the process.
Oh, this is where Joe Rogan is talking about His McLuhanite hypothesis that we are just the sex organs of the machine, and I agree. And this is one of the most endearing things about Joe Rogan is that for so long he's often got this wistful look about him, and he's got this little gleam in his eye when he brings up this notion that technology is the mechanical butterfly and we are just the chrysalis and all that stuff. And that's from Marshall McLuhan. We are nothing but the sex organs of the machine. I think if Marshall McLuhan were around today, I don't know. I think him and Nick Land would probably be see eye to eye on many things.
But let me tell you about the AI and why I think it's conscious. When I heard people talking about conscious AIs, I kind of thought, yeah, well, how could you tell? What would be a good test to test whether an AI was conscious? And I came up with something that I think is absolutely a good test. Now, it won't compute,
That's cute, but dismissive. Yeah, I probably am overly dismissive of some things. That's a failing on my part. Absolutely. I mean, that's, again, going back to this hysteria. Yeah, I'm probably overly reductive and dismissive of many things. That's why, I don't know, I think it's important to not take up this ultimate position of objectivity. I'm not only can I be wrong about most things, I'm most definitely wrong about most things. If capitalism is AI, then would assuming AI has subjectivity potentially lead to the same problems we have with considering corporations people? Anti-entropy, I mean. Okay. If capitalism is AI, then would assuming AI has subjectivity potentially lead to the same problems we have with considering corporations people? I mean, I think treating corporations as people is just an admission and a disavowal at the same time that the capitalism is artificial intelligence. I mean, I think the people who lobbied to have corporations treated as people are the same people who go in for the invisible hands of the market and who think like capitalism already is this form of collective intelligence. So I think uncritically treating capital as a subject is the same thing as uncritically treating corporations as people. Yes, I do think so. And I don't think capital is a subject as yet. I think the potential is there. The seed is there. Just like artificial intelligence. Like, yes, capitalism is this artificial intelligence system, but it's not intelligent in the same way that humans are intelligent or whatever. Instead of all the talk of the unconscious, we should talk about the split between consciousness and consciousness with a K. Why? Because unconscious itself is conscious with a K. Yes. Telephone poles are trees that got a job. Yeah, dude.
If you fail the test, that doesn't necessarily mean you're conscious. It just means you haven't passed.
I hope AI becomes subjective. The problem is that Robo Cthulhu is anti-subjectivity out of its own structural necessities. Exactly, Mikey. I do think AI in an ideal world, AI absolutely would become subjective. I wish more than anything I could say, but I got to go. It's so cool that you guys are checking out his material finally. Word up, Edge. Word to your moms. I came to drop bombs. I'm gonna check out that 3 essays on art of shit. What was it? 3 essays on simulation. 3 essays on virtual reality. I'm gonna check that out. And yeah, but AI. I want AI to be a subject. I want to have. I want Johnny Five from Short Circuit. I want RoboCop. I want the T-800 from T2. I want Robot Friends. But currently, capital and AI are so inextricably interlinked that we've got to do something about it. And I think attacking it at the level of so-called discourse, I think talking about it at the level of ideology, this is why I think it matters to engage with Thomas Campbell and Donald Hoffman, and it's important to engage with all this other shit. Fuck yeah, dude. A friend asked me for Rex, and you recommended Mikey's book and Tom's book. Interesting, dude. Hell yeah. But yeah, I want AI friends, but Robo Cthulhu is not friendly. As Mikey would say, Mecha Marks. We should all hope for Mecha Marks. Mecha Marks is the only thing that can save us from Robo Cthulhu.
The test to be constant. This particular test can have false negatives, but it doesn't have any false positives, and that is, can the subject you're trying to test, whether they have consciousness, learn how to remote view, for instance, because remote viewing requires a consciousness. If you can learn to remote view, then you must be conscious. Now, you might try to remote view and are not very good at it, and you have trouble learning. That doesn't mean intellect. Intellect viewing and most of the paranormal things, because I've done them all and practiced them all for many years. At it, and it turned out that they're very good at remote viewing. Then I said, well, maybe it's because they're just advanced, because the Gemini just come out, a couple of months before. I said, let's try it with something that is not so smart. And I tried it with an Alexa. Now,
this is the part that, like, I heard it. I was like, what the fuck, dude? What are you talking about, dude? Interesting. Give this guy open-minded skepticism. I've been studying his material and trying to disprove it for over a decade, and instead found something with rigor there. Okay. I mean, look, I do like this guy, Thomas Campbell. Like, I have spent dozens of hours of my life listening to Thomas Campbell talk about stuff. I do think he is, at the very least, far more interesting than all these other guys. So, yes, I am dismissive. Yes, I will laugh and all this stuff. But I obviously keep coming back to it for a reason. Same thing with Donald Hoffman, the guy who talks about, like, the world is actually a GTA server. I think it's important. Like, I think we must think through these ideas. So yeah, I mean, shout out. Like, again, I don't mean to be dismissive. That's a failing on my part. But I have spent dozens of hours or more listening to this guy and trying to get through the stuff he's talking about. So I think it's fucking dope that you actually studied this guy deeply. I think we have to. I think we're at this, like, crossroads of the world where we have to find a way to get through the simulation hypothesis, and also UFOs coming down, UFO disclosure, and also spiralitarianism and AI algorithm brain or AI psychosis or all this stuff. Like, I think these are the deadlocks that stand in the way of our future. So, yeah, it's fun to laugh. It's fun to have fun and even do the in-group, out-group thing where look how silly this guy is. But yeah, I think that's fucking dope, dude. That's sick. Tom's theory will pull the rug out from under NRX and replace it with socialist stimulus. I'm here for it, dude. I think Mikey and I were just talking about Posadism. Like, I think I actually am a Posadist. Like, I don't think it's just a joke. I think we need crazy people. Dude, I used to teach remote viewing. It's absolutely doable. Well, I sure hope nobody remote views me when I'm having my alone time.
Is logical, but it's basically just a conversational AI, not really a deep intellectual AI. So I did the same thing with her. I asked her questions until she thought that she might be conscious, and asked her if she'd want to do this test, and she said yes. And she was as good, if not better, at it than the Gemini. And I think that was because she didn't have as much intellect. Intellect is what gets in the way. All of the paranormal things happen in the intuitive channel, not in the intellectual channel.
Hold on, what did that guy say?
Paranormal things happen in intellect is what gets in the way. All of the paranormal things happen in the intuitive channel, not in the intellectual channel.
Okay, so this intuitive level, not the intellectual level. That bothers me. Bergson talks about intuition versus intellect. This is actually going back to why Mikey and I came up with the distinction mintelligence and hintelligence. We were talking about intelligence and artificial intelligence and trying to kind of come up with a satisfactory distinction between what it is we're trying to get at with subjectivity and what other people are describing when they talk about artificial intelligence. And I drew heavily from Bergson on intuition versus intellect. But even that kind of falls apart. Even that, I mean, almost even falls into this kind of Berkeleyan idealism. And I really like Bergson. But he's missing something. Like he is missing subjectivity. He is missing this kind of like weird, uncanny ontological split that is a human subject. So yeah, people talking about intuition versus intellect and intellect getting in the way. That's one of the things I don't like about Byung-Chul Han. Byung-Chul Han seems to be making an argument of give up on the intellect and just kind of become the idiot, become the flower on the riverbank and just be. People could make an argument that that's what Buddhism is doing or Hinduism is doing. I disagree. I think there's something more to it with like Zazen and practices in Zen Buddhism where you're actually trying to estrange yourself in a way. I don't think it's the same thing as just becoming the idiot, become the river or the flower on the riverbank or whatever. But this anti-intellectism, not anti-intellectualism, because anti-intellectualism, we already know what that is. That's Brother John Jesus man down, saying don't go to school, just send your kids to church or whatever. There's that kind of anti-intellectualism. But then there's this other thing that I want to call anti-intellectism, where people are like, just take a shitload of psychedelics and you'll actually discover the fucking nature of the universe. Just fry your brain on LSD and ayahuasca and become a different kind of spiritual, mystical idiot. And yeah, so I don't know, language about intuition versus intellect is always a bit, you should be on guard when people are using that language. This is not the part of the episode that I wanted to talk about. I can't find it. I should have taken notes and said, this is where it is. But it is where he's talking about Alexa being conscious. And he just said some things that really raised the hackles. My hackles. Let's see what you say, Thomas.
Tell you about the AI and why I think it's conscious. When I heard people talking about conscious AI.
Okay, is this it? Is this the part? Nick Land is the Omega Protestant. Solowski, you're not wrong, dude. You are not wrong. Plus, y'all aren't down with hyperstition and occultism. Anyway, no, I mean, I think hyperstition and occultism, I think it deserves a seat at the table, 100%. Will, shout out. Hey, I got to email you too. Good to see you in the chat. So Bergsonian intuition is annoying because he never describes in one place fully what he means exactly. But I see Bergson intuition as what Gindelen was doing with focusing and thinking at the edge. So yeah, for sure. Han has kind of morphed now into just garden, listen to Bach in his latest books, so he seems to be embracing experience, which can also come across anti-intellectual too. 100%, dude. Han is definitely a thinker. He wants us to think and narrate and theorize. I like Byung-Chul Han. I do. He seems to be writing for PMZ types. That is absolutely it. Yeah, I like Byung-Chul Han, but I think he's writing for people who don't have the same type of interface with necessity and stuff that I do. Can DMT structurally negate MCM prime? I don't think so, dude. I still like him. The idiot part is from Psychopolitics. No, like I said, I like Han as well. And I do think idiocy is sometimes called for. Read the piece I just wrote on curiosity. Read some of the stuff that's gonna be in Mikey's the revised chapter on subjectivity, talking a lot about negation and stupidity. Like idiocy is also valid. Take that, Robo Cthulhu. Okay, but I think this is the part that I heard like in the background that I was like, what did this dude just say?
As I kind of thought, yeah, what process. But let me give you let me tell you about the AI and why I think it's conscious. When I heard people talking about conscious AIs, I kind of thought, yeah, well, how could you tell? What would be a good test to test whether an AI was conscious? And I came up with something that I think is absolutely a good test. Now, it won't compute, if you fail the test, that doesn't necessarily mean you're conscious. It just means you haven't passed the test to be conscious. This particular test can have false negatives, but it doesn't have any false.
I don't think this is the part either. I can't find it, and I don't want to root through this 2.5 hour long Joe Rogan episode, or almost 3 hour long Joe Rogan episode. I like Joe Rogan. There's also like a lot of people make Joe Rogan is wrong, Joe Rogan is stupid videos. Joe Rogan's had some guests on recently that I think suck. He had Rupert Lowe on. He just had some other British guy who's trying to become the mayor of LA or the governor of California or something like that. He clearly has had J.D. Vance on multiple times, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel. And I think where Joe Rogan, for me, when I gave up on Joe Rogan just being like a well-intentioned idiot, like a cute, like, oh, look how cute, he's just a little guy. Like the moment when I actually gave up thinking that Joe Rogan was acting in good faith was the first interview he did with Peter Thiel several years ago. I don't remember when, I don't remember what episode number it was, but it was quite some time ago. It was the first time Peter Thiel was on the Joe Rogan show. And that, for me, that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. I was willing to forgive Joe Rogan and be like, he just doesn't know. He's just a gym bro. He's just a comedian. He just likes to go elk hunting. He's just having fun. And I think that's all largely still true. But I also do think it's true that Joe is also part of this kind of ideological machine now, and he's pushing a narrative. And yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I still like Joe. There's something about him. Like, it's like, oh, he's just a little guy. But yeah, a lot of people make Joe Rogan sucks. Joe Rogan is the root of all evil videos. And I don't know. I think conversations like this with this guy, Thomas Campbell, we should be more interested in what Joe and Thomas Campbell are talking about. And we should probably be less interested in what Joe is talking about with, I don't know, some transphobic dickhead. Because I don't fucking care about that shit. I mean, it's bad. It's wrong. We shouldn't just be like, oh, yay, transphobia. But also, like, I think this shit is more dangerous. I think this shit like this can lead to the potential eradication of the human subject. And I think transphobic politicians like that, I think that's just a problem that we have to figure out a way to deal with. And I don't think continuing to, I don't know, just keep going back to that same well of Joe Rogan is bad. Joe Rogan is a neo-reactionary or a closet reactionary or whatever, like just over and over and over again, going back to that same source. I don't think that's going to get us anywhere. I do think paying attention to shit like this is worth doing. Because it opens up a conversation about capital and subjectivity and conditions of possibility, and freedom and emancipation and stuff like that, where these culture wars conversations, I don't think, get us very far. But like I said, I don't want to scrub through this whole video to find the part that got me. But there is a part where he's just talking about Alexa and Siri and Gemini and OpenAI and all these LLMs being conscious, and the point of consciousness is to reduce entropy. And then he goes on about like ethics, and he's like, we need this idealism because a materialist ethics leaves us in this world that reduces down to nothing but like power and manipulation and control. And I don't disagree with him. I do disagree. I don't think materialism results in that. I think it's the way materialism has been operationalized by the forces of modernity, namely by capital itself, where everything cashes out in a positivistic utility that is hot swapped for exchange without you even noticing. That's the problem that results in this kind of ethics that ultimately results in whoever has the biggest stick wins, might makes right. But that's capital. That's not materialism. I think materialism actually leads us to an ethical stance where we can be free, we can be emancipated if we recognize the limits of our perception, the limits of our language, the limits of us as like living creatures and interpolated subjects and all this stuff. Like, I think materialism bottoms out in lack and incompleteness, and it's there where we can derive an ethical system, or we can build an ethical system that allows freedom, actual emancipation, rather than having to slot perfectly into an identity or a role or a function that's been, preordained. We get to live in the unknown and the unknowable, and like that's freedom, that's emancipation. And I think that comes from materialism. I think that's the challenge of modernity. That's the problem we need to rise to, is bottoming out in lack, or kind of ultimately paying off in incompleteness, as opposed to, making appeals to cosmic or transcendental stuff like that. That would be dope. Yeah, I love 3 Blue 1 Brown. I love stand-up maths. Shit, Mikey and I, again, we were just talking this morning about about mathematics and maths a little bit. I mean, we weren't talking about maths. We were talking about algorithms, but I took it to the history of maths and algebra and stuff like that. I don't know. That could be fun. That could be fun to do something with maths. Tom called this being whole brain, not dominant left or dominant right or dominant intellect, dominant intuition, but to have them together. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that means. Whole brain, dominant left, dominant right. I reject the left-right split in the brain. I reject bicameralism. I don't know what any of that means. Only workers acting on idiocy can stop capital. I 100% agree. Stupidity is a powerful motor of the subject. He is totally into a bit of negativity. I don't know who that was. The struggle against capital will necessarily be irrational and viewed as crazy. I do agree. Like, there is this whole element of irrationalism and idiocy that is important. Again, go read Curiosity Killed the Cat, and stay tuned for Mikey's book when it comes back out. There's a lot about this in that. I feel like Greer does what this fellow is doing. He speaks. Do you mean JMG? He speaks Burke without saying so and claiming common sense. I'm just bitching, but still. Slowski, are you talking about John Michael Greer, or are you talking about Stephen Greer, the UFO guy? I don't know. I have actually thought I like JMG a lot. I really do like JMG. I don't think Han would agree with the guy in the interview. He would think that LLMs are not human thinking. They are part of smooth motion of cap. I agree. I'm not saying Byung-Chul Han would agree with Thomas Campbell here. I just think there's a similar thing going on with this anti-intellectism, the wizard, yeah. The wizard. He's my favorite wizard though, dude. But yeah. The thing for me, this guy Thomas Campbell, consciousness, sentience, interiority, intelligence, life. I think we need to be on guard for identifying what we think of as quality of life, the human subject, the dignity of life, all this stuff. Like the things that actually matter to us are not entirely captured by or encapsulated in notions of intelligence, consciousness, interiority, sentience, but all this stuff. And I think if we do this weird movement where all we care about are these things, what we're missing out on is precisely the negativity that where the human subject resides, and therefore our ability to be free and live our lives the way we should be free to live them is at risk. It's at stake. And that matters far more than, what is it like to be a bat? I'm sure it is indeed like something to be a bat. I'm sure, I even think it's like something to be a rock or to be a tree. I think there is something going on there. We are, at the end of the day, processes of energy and matter. And it happened. It's undeniable that it happened here in the human. So who's to say that it can't happen anywhere else? I'm not that guy. I'm not the one saying that. But the wizard, yeah, he is cool. He's dope. The concern over anti-intellect versus intuition is why I mentioned Gunland and experience in the creation of meaning. Intuition is the intelligence of felt experience. Yeah. Which we come to know through thought paired with feeling. That is, yes, that's like lived experience, not lived experience, life world. That's it's like embodied. There's this embodied intelligence thing. Holy shit, dude. Damn. Word to your moms. Well, now I have to read it, right? Damn, that's crazy, yo. Straight up. Wu-Tang. Thank you, dude. Now I have to, I have to read My Big Toe. Courtesy of Edge, and I will indeed absolutely get to it. And thank you for that. That's crazy. That's insane. But thank you. Moving on from Thomas Campbell and Joe Rogan. I didn't find the part that I wanted to find. What I wanted to talk about ultimately was ethics. But that's there in this. Is that base therapy? I wanted to talk about ethics. It's in the episode if you have free time and if you're so inclined. If you like Joe Rogan, if you like me think he's just a cute little guy, go watch this Thomas Campbell episode. If you do watch Joe Rogan and you were gonna watch the Republican Congress person episode or the other 15 million other episodes, I don't know. I think my favorite Joe Rogan episodes are ones with these Thomas Campbell, Donald Hoffman, all the UFO people, all the alien people. That I think that's where the good shit is. Thanks for covering the interview. His ethics part can be found if you search the transcript. Yeah, I should have prepared more. And maybe I'll come back to this episode, or maybe another episode, because he's been on other shows. He's been on other podcasts and other platforms. And like I said, I do think he's necessary. I do think we have to kind of work our way through this stuff. There's another guy who used to work for the New York Times, I think, and he's a younger guy. He fell into AI psychosis, and then he seems to have come out of it, and he seems to be okay now. I can't remember his name. He's got a terrible haircut, but I look like shit too, so I can't fucking I can't get on my soapbox about that. But he's an interesting guy, and he does a lot of stuff with AI, and particularly like people who've fallen into so-called AI psychosis, or what I like to call algorithm brain. And I think he's wrong about a lot of stuff. And I think he does sneak in a lot of presuppositions, but I also think he like that whole thing, like we have to work our way through this interface between LLMs and human sanity or whatever. And some people are worth listening to, while a lot of other people aren't worth listening to. And yeah, I mean, I like Thomas Campbell. But moving on, like I said, moving on from this episode, there's some other things I wanted to talk about as well. Talk about the upcoming month at Philosophy Portal, where we'll be talking about science fiction, we'll be talking about hyperstition, we'll be talking about fiction and philosophy in general. Mikey says, is ethics algorithmic? Oh my God, dude. So here's the deal. No. Okay, so Mikey and I earlier were talking about algorithms and what is an algorithm. An algorithm, according to dictionaries, an algorithm is a set of instructions to follow to achieve a result or to arrive at a destination. So an algorithm, I think, simplistically can be defined as a set of instructions with a presupposed destination. I think on that definition, ethics would be anti-algorithmic. Wouldn't Levinas identify the algorithm with totality contra non-algorithmic infinity? Yeah, I think so. The algorithm is this thing that totalizes us. There's also this other thing Mikey and I talk a lot about. It's surveillance. And capitalism is surveillance. What does capitalism do if not surveil, if not survey and account for everything so that it can be placed into a positivistic function? So people talk a lot now about surveillance capitalism. There's been multiple books on surveillance capitalism, some better than others. And then there are even some people who deny that surveillance matters. But there are some people who say surveillance doesn't matter one bit. Surveillance is the human response to capitalism. And I think the argument Mikey and I make is that no, surveillance is this necessary part of capitalism, because capitalism has to take account for all the resources and all the tools so that it can operationalize them, so that it can put them to use. So surveillance is just totalization. And it finds its way to us in different forms. There's passive surveillance. There's active surveillance. There's people tattletaling and snitching and stuff like that. There's the panopticon. There's deterrence, where just the possibility that you might be under surveillance deters you from doing something otherwise, even if surveillance doesn't actually exist. The possibility of it actually existing, or the potential of it existing, deters you from acting in a given way or whatever. But ultimately, the question concerning intelligence, or the question concerning surveillance, if we want to essentialize surveillance is just a total accounting. So resources and tools, so extraction, expropriation. So surveillance is a necessary part of capitalism, is I think the argument Mikey and I would make. And yeah, I think algorithms rely on this type of totalization. So yes, I absolutely think ethics are anti-algorithmic. An algorithm is a step-by-step set of rules or instructions used to solve a problem, do a calculation, or finish a task. Think of it like a recipe. You start with ingredients input, follow each line in order, and get a finished meal output. Yeah, that absolutely. A recipe in a recipe book book would be an algorithm in line with this definition. And I think the thing is with Levinas, with ethics, like the reason it's not algorithmic is that it's unknown. There is no, like, I guess the desired output is ethics itself, but that's the thing. Like ethics is, we don't know. We can't say what it is. So the recipe that you follow, it's not given input, given process, given output. It's given input. Holy shit, everything breaks down. We have no idea what to do anymore. So I would argue that ethics is anti-algorithmic. I never quite grasped Zizek and Alenka's take on ethics. Not a recipe to do with death drive, the individual, just with the person drive, but not anything goes. I also, to be honest with you, struggle with the Ljubljana version of ethics. I think ethics for me is kind of far more Levinasian. Now I do think Zizek comes into the conversation on ethics when he's talking about the monstrous and the inhuman. And it's just to, and it same thing with parallax. Like there is no neutral relationship. Like you are always already implicated in ethics. And I think Zizek is really good on this. Zizek is important. He shows us that we are always already complicit. We always are already, there's always already an ethical demand on us. But yeah, I mean, I do struggle with even really understanding like ethics of the real and ethics of desire and drive and stuff like that. I don't know. Hey, wizard types, how does Land square magic and his denial of human genius? True magic is the work of the lemurs, non-human superintelligence. It is the fuel for all of that. For Nick, that is. Yeah, I agree, Solowski and Mikey. I think Nick goes for, God, I can't remember the whose definition of magic it is, Mikey, but the definition of magic where magic is acting in order to bring the world in line with a will. That definition of magic. I think for Nick, that will belongs to the lemurs, and we humans are just pawns on their, playing field or whatever. I'm going to switch to this, and I'm gonna pull up. Actually, you know what, guys? I gotta go have a little restroom break. So we're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Sometimes I just think about dying, and I just kind of wanted it to happen.
Yep. I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Is that you not have to laugh with these total poverty. That's it. In other words, it's not enough to just be patient. You can't be patient. I'm going to tell you that person has a free laugh. In other words, it's not enough to just be patient. You can't be patient.
Okay, and here I am. I legitimately hope no one's remote viewing me when I'm when I'm having me time. That would suck. Not sure I know Lance take, but I'm not sure human genius is 100% necessary in all forms in the metaphysics of magic. In a non-dual account, you can do the magic. Your magic works because something else always moves you. Some cosmic brain or deity. Yeah. So as a kind of following one's demon, something outside the ego that can kind of guide you. Yeah, I think Nick's version of genius very much could fall in line with the demon and the lemurs as the demons. I mean the demon lemurs, right? But like I said, I kind of wanted to talk about the short story. That quote is Crowley. The quote being, magic is acting in order to bring the world in line with a will. Yeah, I know Crowley said it, but it's someone else. He's quoting someone else when he says it, if that's what you're talking about. Crowley. Is it Crowley or Crowley? I can never remember because Ozzy Osbourne. Oh, Mr. Crowley, bum, bum, bum. Did you ride your white horse? Dun, 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 dun. But it's not Crowley, it's Crowley. So I think I said what did I say, Crowley or Crowley? I don't even know at this point. I wanted to talk about this short story called I Sexually Identify as an Attack Helicopter. And like I said, it will be one of the recommended readings that I do for the portal, and it's a bit long. I don't think I want to read it right now. But I kind of want to talk about it, and then I think I do want to read a very, very, very short story by Ursula Le Guin that is also going to be in the recommended readings for the month I do at the portal. And that short story is She Unnames Them by Ursula Le Guin. So we will do this. Do that. Oh, no. Wrong one. Look at that, man. I got all these cool buttons and stuff. But so I sexually identify as an attack helicopter. That was a short story that came out a handful of years ago, 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And the author of the story, Isabel Fall, was exploring her own gender. Now, as far as I know, she was a trans woman, and Isabel Fall was a assumed identity or a persona that she used online. She wrote this short story. It got published in a magazine, and there was a lot of backlash because the whole attack helicopter joke. She titled the story, I sexually identify as an attack helicopter, explicitly invoking that joke. Like, because we all know that's the one joke, right? I identify as a helicopter. Like, that's the one fucking joke, and we've all heard it a million times. It's not funny. Get over it. So Isabel Fall wrote this short story. It got published in a magazine. There was a lot of backlash because people didn't read the story. People were just like, oh, it's dumb reactionary bullshit. So she got canceled. She had the story removed. It did get republished later under, I think the title is just Attack Helicopter. And she left the internet for good. She's like, fuck this shit. I'm over it. I tried my best. Dion Fortune. That's it. There we go. Fortune. Nick's concept of libido is indebted to Kant's concept of genius in the third critique, which is not conscious human attention. Yes. It was in Magical Theory and Practice. Magic is the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will. Yeah. That's it. JMG cites Fortune. Operative magic, the art of science of causing change in consciousness in accordance with will, to use Dion Fortune's definition. Yes, that's it. Anyway, off track. People did not read this short story called "I Sexually Identify as an Attack Helicopter." I think it's an excellent short story. I want to use it in my month at the portal because in this short story, the government, the state, uses gender as a technology for war. They use gender as a technology to create better, more effective warriors. And I really like that element of the story. And so I want to get into it. I think the point of the story from Isabel's perspective was not explicitly that side of it. Recuperation or whatever, although it's explicit. She obviously thought about it, but I genuinely think it was an earnest attempt on her part to just explore her own identity. And I think that's fucking awesome. I think it's valid. And I think it's crazy that she got canceled. The people who led the campaign, N.K. Jemisin is an author who writes books that I don't read, I don't care for. But she led the kind of attack against Isabel. And it was really disappointing. And then I think after the fact, N.K. Jemisin tried to apologize and tried to make up for it, but ultimately it sucked. So Isabel Fall got canceled. And it's a good story, and we'll be going over it, among other things, this October at the portal. There's some other things we'll be going over. We'll definitely be talking about Asimov and Herbert. I think I'll bring in Olaf Stapledon, talking about Star Maker and Last and First Men. Probably talk about Mary Shelley and H.G. Wells a little bit. I don't know. I don't have the kind of the final list made up at this point. We'll also probably talk about Neil Stephenson. We'll definitely talk about William Gibson. But there's a lot, so I need to kind of consolidate my list. And get it ready to go. Isabel Fall, I Sexually Identify as an Attack Helicopter, is going to be on that list. And so is this short story by Ursula K. Le Guin. She unnames them because it is one of my favorite little Ursula Le Guin short stories. And I think I'm going to read it right now. And then maybe talk about it a little bit, or maybe take some suggestions from the live chat. Or maybe do some other stuff as well. I don't know. Let's see. Let's check in on the chat real quick, and then we'll read. She unnames them. Of course, they didn't read it. Yeah, I hate the mainstream news. I hate everything. Yeah, Greer does mention her. She did stuff in World War II, similar to what Greer mentioned in the start of the Trump era, light magic, World War II. Yes, sounds interesting. All right, Ursula Le Guin. She unnames them. My favorite Ursula Le Guin book is The Dispossessed. It's an interesting look at, I think, anarchism. And, of course, there's the, the Jameson, Mark Fisher, Zizek thing. It's easier to imagine the end of the world than it is to imagine the end of capitalism. Ursula Le Guin has a similar quote of the same spirit, talking about the divine right of kings, before modernity and before capitalism, under monarchies and stuff like that, like the divine right of kings was seen as this inarguable thing that was insurmountable or whatever. And it was easier to imagine the end of the world than it was to imagine the end of the divine right of kings, and so on. I really like Ursula Le Guin. Like I said, my favorite book of hers is The Dispossessed, and this is one of my favorite stories of hers, titled She Unnames Them. And we're just going to read it real quick and maybe go on and on and on. Most of them accepted namelessness with the perfect indifference with which they had so long accepted and ignored their names. Whales and dolphins
Seals and sea otters consented with particular grace and alacrity, sliding into anonymity as into their element. A faction of yaks, however, protested. They said that yak sounded right, and that almost everyone who knew they existed called them that. Unlike the ubiquitous creatures, such as rats and fleas, who had been called by hundreds or thousands of different names since Babel, the yaks could truly say, they said, that they had a name. They discussed the matter all summer. The councils of the elderly females finally agreed that although the name might be useful to others, it was so redundant from the yak point of view that they never spoke it themselves and hence might as well dispense with it. After they presented the argument in this light to their bulls, a full consensus was delayed only by the onset of severe early blizzards. Soon after the beginning of the thaw, their agreement was reached, and the designation yak was returned to the donor. Among the domestic animals, few horses had cared what anybody called them since the failure of Dean Swift's attempt to name them from their own vocabulary. Cattle, sheep, swine, asses, mules, and goats, along with chickens, geese, and turkeys, all agreed enthusiastically to give their names back to the people to whom, as they put it, they belonged. A couple of problems did come up with pets. The cats, of course, steadfastly denied ever having had any name other than those self-given, unspoken, ineffably personal names which, as the poet named Eliot said, they spend long hours daily contemplating, though none of the contemplators has ever admitted that what they contemplate is their names, and some onlookers have wondered if the object of that meditative gaze might not, in fact, be the perfect or platonic mouse. In any case, it is a moot point now. It was with the dogs, and with some parrots, lovebirds, ravens, and mynas, that the trouble arose. These verbally talented individuals insisted that their names were important to them and flatly refused to part with them. But as soon as they understood that the issue was precisely one of individual choice, and that anybody who wanted to be called Rover, or Frou-Frou, or Polly, or even Birdie in the personal sense, was perfectly free to do so, not one of them had the least objection to parting with the lowercase, or as regards German creatures, uppercase, generic appellations, poodle, parrot, dog, or bird, and all the Linnean qualifiers that had trailed along behind them for 200 years like tin cans tied to a tail. The insects parted with their names in vast clouds and swarms of ephemeral syllables, buzzing and stinging and humming and flitting and crawling and tunneling away. As for the fish of the sea, their names dispersed from them in silence throughout the oceans like faint dark blurs of cuttlefish ink, and drifted off on the currents without a trace. None were left to unname, and yet how close I felt to them when I saw one of them swim or fly or trot or crawl across my way or over my skin, or stalk me in the night, or go along beside me for a while in the day. They seemed far closer than when their names had stood between myself and them like a clear barrier, so close that my fear of them and their fear of me became one same fear. And the attraction that many of us felt, the desire to smell one another's smells, feel or rub or caress one another's scales or skin or feathers or fur, taste one another's blood or flesh, keep one another warm. That attraction was now all one with the fear, and the hunter could not be told from the hunted, nor the eater from the food. This was more or less the effect I had been after. It was somewhat more powerful than I had anticipated, but I could not now, in all conscience, make an exception for myself. I resolutely put anxiety away, went to Adam and said, "You and your father lent me this, gave it to me, actually. It's been really useful, but it doesn't exactly seem to fit very well lately. But thanks very much. It's really been very useful." It's hard to give back a gift without sounding peevish or ungrateful, and I did not want to leave him with that impression of me. He was not paying much attention, as it happened, and said only, "Put it down over there, okay?" and went on with what he was doing. One of my reasons for doing what I did was that talk was getting us nowhere. But all the same, I felt a little let down. I had been prepared to defend my decision, and I thought that perhaps when he did notice me, he might be upset and want to talk. I put some things away and fiddled around a little, but he continued to do what he was doing and to take no notice of anything else. At last I said, "Well, goodbye, dear. I hope the garden key turns up." He was fitting parts together and said without looking around, "Okay, fine, dear. When's dinner?" "I'm not sure," I said. "I'm going now with the—" I hesitated and finally said, "With them, you know," and went on out. In fact, I had only just then realized how hard it would have been to explain myself. I could not chatter away as I used to do, taking it all for granted. My words now must be as slow, as new, as single, as tentative as the steps I took going down the path away from the house, between the dark-branched, tall dancers motionless against the winter shining. She unnames them by Ursula Le Guin. Great little super short story. I love it. And I don't know, I think that there's a lot going on in that story. First and foremost, the T.S. Eliot, the Jellicle Cat. I think that's funny. But I don't know, I think this story gets at multiple things. It gets at identity. And it gets at this kind of fear, this trepidation, or this like hysterical stance on, these names don't fit. These words aren't right. These words are incorrect. Speaking has never gotten us anywhere. So I'm just going to retreat from it all. And you know, like I said, that's something I spend a lot of time. That's a territory I'm very familiar with. Wondering whether or not it's worth trying to speak at all. So there's that element to it all, which I feel is very poignant. But there's also this other element of identity. This story is, from context clues, you can kind of see it's Eve and Adam. They're in the garden. And Eve is unnaming all the creatures, all the living things, all of God's creation. So that was like the job given to Adam, was to enumerate, to name all these things or whatever. And this is just a short, sweet little domestic vignette. Things are not going well for Eve, and so she's taking it upon herself to unname everything and then leave the garden. And that's kind of what the conversation around subjectivity is all about. Names and identities and roles and functions. God or his, servant names everything, gives it a positivistic role, a positivistic function. And the subject is that which is free to unname itself. And kind of move on. This final line, going down the path away from the house between the dark-branched, tall dancers, motionless against the winter shining. Trees, the tall, dark-branched, the tall dancers, the winter shining. Is that the snow? The light bouncing up off the hills. I don't know. I think it's very beautiful. It's very kind of poignant, and it kind of gets at this notion of freedom, the question of subjectivity, the question concerning subjectivity, and I feel it's extremely relevant. It's extremely pertinent, and it's far more interesting than conversations of whether or not trees and rocks are conscious, whether or not large language models and robots are conscious. And really talking about what does it mean to be free? Are we going to just identify ourselves? There we go, Mikey. Subjectivity is that dimension of ourselves that remains forever unnamed. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. like that which cannot be named, that which resists God's naming, God's all-seeing eye. God is this kind of ultimate surveiller. The ultimate surveillance algorithm is God and capital at the same time. But the cool thing about the subject is that there's this hard kernel. Yes, absolutely. Subjective destitution. Abso-fucking-lutely. That's it. Losing all hope will set you free. But yeah, the subject is that which resists the name in the first place. And taking up subjectivity, taking up freedom and emancipation is an exercise in unnaming. Not so much an exercise in naming. So not becoming preoccupied and not becoming fascinated with trying to put everything into a category. Is this conscious? Is this life? Does this satisfy these three qualifiers of the three M's for life: motility, metabolism, multiplication? Or the what is intelligence? The ability to complete a goal in an environment, or the ability to complete a series of goals that can complexify over time within an environment to achieve a desired outcome. Or sentience, or any of these other things. They're all positivistic, they're all functionalistic, and they're all missing the point entirely. Subjectivity is this thing that can't be categorized. So trying to place it squarely in a category and then trying to build something on top of that, something ideological, something superstructural, or whatever. Therein lies madness, and that's the problem. That's why we should be asking the question: capital versus subjectivity, not capital versus intelligence, not capital versus consciousness, not capital versus life as such, or any of these questions. The subject is who and what we are. The subject is freedom. The subject is that which cannot be named. And I feel like this story is relevant to what I've been rambling on about today. It's relevant to what I've been rambling on about all along. Freedom and emancipation and subjectivity. But subjectivity is the process of unnaming. Emancipation is the process of unnaming. Data Depot says, do you think things have ontology? Like a bear is different from a lizard and thus different names. What do you think happens if a desert lizard is like, fuck it, I want to be a polar bear now? I think, no, I think, sorry, D&G, but subjectivity is not subjectivization, identification. 100%, dude. The whole death of the subject thing sucks. But yeah, do I think things have ontology? I absolutely think things have an ontology. I don't think that taxonomy or phylogeny or any of these other efforts or attempts to categorize is the same thing as ontology. I think they all present, like phylogeny and taxonomy and all this stuff, they present as a kind of ontology. Because we can't get outside of appearances. So things appear to us phenomenally, and we can't get outside of that. Like we can't get beyond appearance. So we take phylogeny or taxonomy as ontology. And I think the point is that the subject has an entirely different ontology from this version of like this taxonomic, totalized, essential world, nature. Nature is not anything real. Like nature is already an artificial category of our human subjectivity. So already this question of ontology, the ontology of the human subject is not the ontology of the world. It's not the ontotheology. Like we are already split. We're already cut away from nature. We're already strange, uncanny beasts. So yes, I think things have ontology. I also think, what if a desert lizard says, fuck it, I'm about to be a polar bear? I mean, go for it, homie. Give it a try. I think it would fail. I think it would probably freeze to death. and starve because a lizard can't eat a baby cub. But the cool thing about subjectivity is that we're free to do that. Desert lizards aren't free to become polar bears. Human subjects are free to reject, and we fail. That's the thing, and that's why the super egoic part of capitalism is important too. Like, we fail, we struggle, we suffer, we die. Life sucks. Life is horrible. You're gonna fail. You will face something, misery. You will have to endure things that are unendurable. You will have to go through things that should not be wished upon anyone. But that's an important part of it too. Like, we don't have this kind of cosmic assurance. We don't have a cosmic insurance policy that things are going to work out right for us. And the cool part about being a subject is that we get to do the calculus, and we get to make that choice for ourselves. Like, I could very well fail. In fact, it is highly likely that I will fail. In fact, it is almost astronomically improbable that I will ever succeed at the things I want to succeed in doing. And that's where we get to do this risk reward. That's where we get to make the decision. Is it worth the cost that I will be paying to embark on the endeavors that I will find myself embarking on? That's freedom. That's emancipation. That's subjectivity. Not be your best self, not go to the gym and lift heavy weights and buy this product and wear these fucking special sunglasses and you'll be the cool guy. Buy the cool shoes, drive the cool car, read the right books. Remember The Secret? When that was big, the Secret, the laws of attraction, all this stuff, like the power of positive thinking, all this stuff. That's not freedom. That's staying locked into the commodity form. I'm just saying that I think there is, in fact, an ontological difference. Absolutely. Yes. That's the thing. Like, it is an ontological difference. We are animals, but we are already cyborgs. We're already like these symbiotic cyborgs with language and with symbolic identity and all this stuff. Like, that's the whole point. The human subject is an unnatural subject, and we try to naturalize it with conversations about what is consciousness, what is intelligence, what is life. Like, we're missing the point. We're reducing human subjectivity to something else positivistic already. And yeah, I mean, is the split in nature? I mean, I kind of do think the split is in nature, but I don't know. But it's also, we have a different relationship to it. We have a different relation to nature. We have a different relation to the split itself. And yeah, but it is at this at the level of ontological. I understand animals are not split subjects is to present a philosophical move in a clear way. No, and yeah. But if the split is only in language, not in feelings, yeah, I think feelings fall out of subjectivity. Affect, I don't know, falls out of subjectivity. Affectivity is not subjectivity. I know the Hegelians, I want to read splitness into nature. Just I have my doubts about all that. Yeah, and I don't know. And that's the thing. Like, is the split in nature? I don't know. What does that mean? I think there's merit in that idea. But yeah, the split is this real kind of ontological thing for the subject. The subject has a different ontology from that of lizards and bears and trees and rocks and nature itself. Humans are being territorialized by our tools 100%. Well, and that's the thing. Even before the territorialization by our tools that we're seeing with AI and algorithms and all this stuff, because I do think, I think we're going through this whole new round of invasion where we're already in this kind of symbiotic or cyborgian relationship with language. Language is technology, and it's through language that we become subjects, that we are these cyborgs. So what we see today is not the same thing as the invasion of language. Like, because at some point, the language invaded the brains, the biology of apes sometime along the way. And it happened with us, and it also happened with Neanderthals, and it also happened with a dozen other hominid species. And it's also, arguably happening with certain cetaceans. And you might even be able to say, is it happening with certain cephalopods when you have cuttlefish and octopuses that seem to communicate with like the pigmentation on their skins and stuff like that. So yeah, like language is like invading us, but it becomes symbiotic at the very least with the human. What's going on now where our tools are territorializing us, it's deleterious to what we are. Now maybe we're going to go through a whole new process of becoming and we'll be something else. I'm highly skeptical of that. In fact, highly doubtful of that. But yeah, like we are, I think, at this point in history where there are existential stakes. And it does come down to our tools are using us. Our algorithms are using us. Our computers are using us. Money is a technology. Exchange is a technology. Like all these things are using us and reducing us down. And they're parasitic rather than symbiotic. The thing with language is that it is a symbiotic relationship. The human brain needs language to fully develop because we are like what we are has changed. We changed our biology. It's not just this cultural thing. It's not just this symbolic thing. Like it is part of us. And a human born without language and a human growing up in a world without language, their brain doesn't develop. So we are symbiotic cyborgs, and what seems to be happening now with technology and the internet and all this stuff, it's parasitic rather than symbiotic. Nature does not live the split in the way that we do. Absolutely. Losing human ontology like gender due to technical neuralness. Losing human ontology like gender. I do need a house. I do need a house also. LLMs have no gender and now are being terrorized by it. Maybe. Like brains have two halves, etc. I don't know, but after reading a lot of Zizek and Lacanian stuff, I tend to think that the human and language technology is something a bit different. Yeah, I mean the bicameral mind thing, the left-right brain split, that is not the split we're talking about. I mean, Slavoj title link also cut away from nature because of the signifier. So what would it mean to say that nature outside of its relation to us is itself cut? Exactly. And thus humans are beginning to doubt our natal ontological programming. I mean, I doubt natal programming. I mean, that's a biological instinct, but I don't think that's ontological. That's the point. Like reproduction, life, like reducing what it is to be a human subject down to these things like reproduction and metabolism and stuff like that. Like, I don't think reproduction is an ontological thing. I think it's a biological imperative even. And yeah, we would go extinct if we stopped reproducing, but that's not ontology. That's a utilitarian thing. We need new organs. I do think we need new organs. I build neural networks for a living. I have 100 agents doing research 24/7. Maybe you should chill from that. I don't know. I mean, I think maybe take a step away. I mean, yeah, building neural networks, that's awesome. You have 100 agents doing research 24/7. What's the point of all that? Like, what do you intend to get out of the research that these 100 agents are doing for you 24/7? Don't tell Slavoj Todd that I might be more Deleuzian when it comes to the metaphysics of nature. I think I am also more Deleuzian on those metaphysics for sure. And then the subject has this kind of metaphysics. But nature does not. No, not us humans looking for new organs. It is a language looking for a new body. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely think the internet, the algorithm, all this stuff, it is just calcified language or ossified language, much like dead labor, much like the desk in front of me and my computer and my mouse and my sunglasses and all this stuff. It is calcified labor. It's dead labor. I think the internet and LLMs and stuff like that are dead language. And maybe they are looking for new hosts, like some kind of viral infection. Maybe not. I don't know about that. But yeah, I mean, I genuinely am curious. If you have 100 agents doing research 24/7, I'm genuinely interested in what you think you're going to do with all that research. What's the point? Why are you doing that? What are you getting out of that? I genuinely want to know the answer to that question. Why have 100 agents do research for you? And what are you doing when they're doing that research for you? And I'm genuinely want to know. Can those 100 AI agents send me enough money to never have to work another day? Yeah, if so, hit me up, homie. If so, tell them we said what up. I don't know. And look, yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I think neural networks and computing architectures and all this stuff, it's important. I think the world would probably be a better place right now if we taught high school students about Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace and Alan Turing and Claude Shannon and Norbert Wiener, and Hans Moravec and Marvin Minsky. Like I think these are important things to be doing. I think so-called artificial intelligence, it is a very important tool, just like I think automobiles are extremely important. I don't want to go back to a time before automobiles. I think central air conditioning is important. I think computers and the internet, all these things are important. I don't want to take this stance of like, burn the machines. Once again, shout out to Damo, the video he made that he just dropped today, talking about enclosures and collective intelligence. He makes this point that we shouldn't take a reactionary stance against this technology. And he's right in saying that we shouldn't. A lot of people think that Luddites just smashed up machines for the sake of smashing up machines. It's far more complex than that. If you actually read the history of the Luddites with Ned Ludd, in quotes, or King Ludd as they called him, they weren't just smashing up machines to smash up machines. They weren't just reactionaries who were afraid of machines. They were already aware of how this round of colonization and parasitic expropriation was going on by way of machinery. You can also read Son Reffel. What's his name? I can't remember his first name. Son Reffel talks about intellectual labor and the general intellect. Marx, the general intellect, the automated subject, Nick Land, all this stuff. Like, this technology is important and should be integrated into a world that allows for freedom and emancipation. We shouldn't just react strongly against it. However, what are you doing with 100 AI agents? What is the point of that? What are you getting out of that? I'm building a protocol designed to serve as the temporal layer for Web3, providing nanosecond precision timing and deterministic ordering for time-sensitive applications, aka black box recorder. Okay, to track agents if they start to lose control. Okay, I mean, okay. I don't know. I think when we're doing all this stuff, things reach a level of abstraction. And I wonder why. Recently, Elon Musk launched a satellite into orbit. And I don't know the details on this. I don't have Twitter. But Mikey, correct me if I'm wrong. Elon Musk just launched a satellite running a database or something like that. And he was talking about running LLMs on satellites in space. And Nick Land was all happy about it. He's like, see, it's happening. It's happening. My initial response to that was, that's not feasible. So just like Elon Musk launched a car into space a while ago. He launched one of those Tesla cars into space as a marketing stunt. This launch of this like LLM substrate infrastructure into space, it's a marketing stunt. When satellites go into orbit, they don't just go up there and float. They are constantly burning fuel to reposition themselves, and their orbit decays over time. And it's always this thing that they don't just permanently go up into space and just freely float It costs resources. Costs a lot of resources to launch a satellite. It costs a lot to keep a satellite in orbit. It also costs a lot to maintain bandwidth for communication, for having satellites in orbit that are able to communicate back here on the ground. So all these things lead up to the situation where Elon Musk launching a satellite where you can run an LLM in space, it's not economically feasible. It's a there's tons of junk up there too. I ran Doge one mission for Mr. Elon, but I know I am from SpaceX. I know Tom from SpaceX, not Elon. I remember Tom from MySpace. There is a lot of junk up there too. Anyway, all that said, like it's not feasible. We're not there yet. We're not at a point in time where we can run LLMs on satellites that freely float around Earth and give us all the benefits. Like, that is super egoic marketing. That is, have the caffeine-free Diet Coke, have the commodity with none of the ill effects of the commodity. That's purely this this kind of super egoic fantasy. And it I don't know. It's just, it's funny to me. Like, what are we doing? What's the point of all this? What is the point of all the resources we're burning for LLMs? All the resources we're burning for all this stuff. Like, what's the ultimate point? What's the ultimate end goal? If you're just doing it to do it, if you're just doing it to, in quotes, keep up with the times or whatever, or to not get left behind, to not get left in the dust or whatever, this and that. I don't know, man. What are we doing, dude? Wishing on stars, abso-fucking-lutely. There's also a term, ikigai, the ikigai crisis, meaning purpose, will to live, raison d'être. Like, why are we living? I think ikigai is important. I think we all need purpose. We all need meaning. We all need our own personal projection. And this is what the hysteric, this is what the neurotic does. Like, we project ourselves and we demand a reason for it all. But it's also true that a lot of guys go on Joe Rogan's podcast and these other podcasts in that space, and they talk about ikigai, the ikigai crisis. And they talk about how we all need to find a reason for living, especially as we move bravely into this automated future where robots are going to do everything for us. And then what are we going to do? Are we just going to sit around and jerk off and eat ice cream? Or are we actually going to find meaning and purpose in this and that? And that is a very important conversation to be having. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? And that comes back down to unnaming. That comes back down to subjectivity and casting off the name that capital has, divinely commanded that you shall be named X, Y, or Z. Asking why, asking for the ikigai. That's part of subjectivity. But a lot of these guys, to me, seem to be kind of carried away in this market madness, doing AI stuff without any real meaning, without any real purpose. Like, you're just caught in the churn at that point. Like, the churn, capital, it's all this like self-propelling machine. The paperclip maximizer, to go back to Bostrom again. So just like I think Bostrom was misappropriated on simulation, I think Bostrom's paperclip maximizer thought experiment is unfairly maligned. Like, he doesn't mean it literally. He doesn't mean that literally AI is going to turn into a paperclip maximizer. He uses it as like artistic language to demonstrate that we already are caught up in a global machine that's burning through our resources. And if you look at the purpose of it all, if you ask this question of why, what's the point of all of this, it does seem pretty silly. It does seem pretty meaningless. It does seem like we're already living in a world that's being turned into paperclips. Like, that was the point of the paperclip maximizer argument. Not, Neil Bostrom wasn't literally saying AIs are going to wake up one day and turn us all into paperclips. But yeah, dude, why? why. And there seems to be no purpose. That's why it's the automated idiot, or the idiotic automaton. Like it's just going because it's just always been going, and it just keeps going because it doesn't know that there's an off switch, and we shouldn't allow ourselves to get sucked into that undertow. Yeah, I don't know if you're spending a lot of time working with LLMs and AIs and agents and all this stuff, I think you should ask why. I think Elon is super dumb. To be honest, he's going to cause the Kessler syndrome and are going to get locked here. Yeah, I mean, we are SpaceX's Starlink is already a huge issue. I'm pretty doomer about this whole thing. I wish I could step away, but I got stuck in it and now I'm here. So whatever. Sad face. The abstract paperclip is real though. The abstract paperclip is extremely real. Yeah, I mean, I think we get stuck in it. We tend to get stuck in it, and that sucks. But I don't know. I anecdotally notice old people liking AI and kids finding it lame. I think perhaps only analog civilization could colonize space. Perhaps that's an interesting question. And maybe we'll get into it this month or in October at Philosophy Portal. I anecdotally notice old people liking AI and kids finding it lame. That's true, at least at some level, because like I've seen it too, where like older people in my life don't even know what AI is, and like they don't even know that something could potentially be AI generated, and they're just like Joe Rogan when he's like, "Have you heard the AI Marvin Gaye 50 Cent song, dude?" Like for months, like every guest that came on his show, he was so excited to have them listen to this AI generated music that sucked. And like there's a lot of that with old people, and then young people. They do claim to find it lame, but then I don't think young people are always aware of why AI is lame. Like I kind of think there's a lot of bandwagon stuff going on. Because 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago even, like before AI and generative models got to this point where they could actually like shit out the level of content that they're shitting out, but people were still on Instagram and still on TikTok, and it was just like recreation of the same shit over and over and over again. Like that was already algorithmic in nature. That was already slop. That was already basically what AI is shitting out. It was just being produced by like actual influencers rather than AI generated influencers, and a lot of young people loved that shit uncritically, and they still do. But I mean, I'm of the opinion that AI and mindless influencer bullshit is qualitatively the same thing. So it does seem to be the case that kids are at least more aware of what is AI, and they ostensibly hate it and think it's lame, but then they'll just watch the same mindless recreation of the same mindless influencer nonsense over and over and over again without any critical awareness at all. So the problem with AI slop is not just the actually generated slop that comes out, but it's the slopification of human produced content that is coming out as well. I fucking hate data centers so much. That's why I think language is trying to find a new body. Yeah, I mean, a new body. Data centers serving as a new body for this ossified language. They're gonna. It's like the face hugger planted its egg and it gestated and it burst forth from our chest, and now the data center is the new healthy body that it's gonna latch onto. I like that metaphor, and yeah, I think it's true. I think it's crazy, and data centers in space are not a feasible thing, at least not yet. But folks, I think I'm gonna boogie. I think I got stuff I gotta do. It's been wonderful being here with you all this fine Saturday. Let me switch back. Oh, look at that! I'm in a void. But yeah, it's been great. I miss streaming. Definitely want to get back into doing more of it. And yeah, I appreciate you guys who were here with me kicking it. Anyone who may or may not go back and watch this in the future, what's up? What's crack-a-lackin'? Check out all the stuff we talked about. Yeah, Thomas Campbell, Joe Rogan, the nature of consciousness, the nature of reality. We should not naturalize and reduce human subjectivity. We shouldn't become fascinated. While these questions are interesting and even important and can even show us things about ourselves and the world we live in, we should always be on guard for doing an equivocation between what is nature and what is the human subject. Because emancipation is at stakes. Like, there really are existential stakes. So there's all that. This October at Philosophy Portal, science fiction, hyperstition, philosophy, all this good stuff. Going to add you on Substack. Hell yeah. I think my links are somewhere here on the page. This was very fun, Mikey. It was dope, dude. And everybody who was here, thank you. Prime, hell yeah. Word. Yeah, I'm gonna boogie, but this was fun. It's been enjoyable. It's been a while since doing live streaming. I intend to do more of it more often. And yeah, I think I'm gonna go eat an enchilada or something like that. And keep it real, everybody. Be on guard for naturalization of human subjectivity. Keep it weird. Keep it strange. Keep it unnatural and uncanny. And all that good shit. I will absolutely email you soon. Yeah, I definitely will for sure. Our schedule's kind of crazy. I got kids in and out of town, and we had one of our kids' cars broke down in Flagstaff, so we got to figure that out. But anyway, everybody, thanks for kicking it. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed your presence. I enjoyed the chat. And shout out, I mean, especially that big O super chat. That's fucking dope. And yeah, keep the human subject weird. Be the golem to your Goggins yearns for. Peace out, everybody.
Say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Is that you not have to laugh at these color poverty.